Chase, I'm so excited to have you. Thank you so much for being on Untold Secrets of Working Remote Overseas. How are you today?
I'm doing especially good today. Great to finally meet you as well. And yeah, like I just shared with you, I mean, I had a big day in terms of remote working overseas today. So I'm in a great place, but even better now. Good to see you.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know Chase, he's basically the epitome of like how you want to live your life. He's basically remote working in Valencia, Spain. He's been there for 5 years with his wife, and he has an amazing podcast that's called About Abroad. And he's the head of remote at Doist, which is a pioneer of remote work company that specializes in productivity software. And then he's also been like the top voice for remote work by the Influencer Report by remote.com. I don't even know how you get that.
I
And
don't either.
tell us like, and he's doing van life with his wife, like roaming around Europe, just going to these beautiful locations. And I'm just like, how can I live your life?
I kind of like find myself saying that about all the people that are involved with this whole event. So it's super cool to be able to join in on this conversation. This was kind of like a dream of mine. Like my wife and I shared that dream many years ago. Like, wonder if we could ever do one of those like lives where you just live abroad and work remotely. But like at that time, remote work wasn't really like a real thing. And so yeah, it is kind of fun to like when I hear you say those things out loud, I'm kind of like, yeah, we actually kind of created what we wanted here, and that's I think that should be like celebrated sometimes. Like I think we're quick to celebrate our failures and dwell on those, and not quick enough to celebrate our successes. So yeah, I'll join you in that. That's fun to
Yeah.
think about.
Well, tell everybody like what you guys are celebrating. Like this is a huge win for you about
Oh
the visa.
yeah. Yeah, so I mean, basically, like, I don't know if a lot of people know this. If you're from Europe, you may not realize this, and if you're from outside of Europe and have never tried to live in Europe, you may not know this. Like, it's very challenging as an American to come and like live in Europe unless you like marry into someone from there or spend spend some time at a company that then transfers you there. Like, otherwise, it's been really challenging. And now there's digital nomad visas which have emerged and
Which
that's
make it
awesome.
like super easy now.
Much easier. Like right, like now it's easy, but those are still like short-term gigs. Like a lot of them don't actually offer a way to give you permanent residency, so you could do your 1 or 2 years or even up to 5 years in some of those cases, but it's still kind of hard to get to like, hey, I just want to like live here, and so anyway, we've been in Europe for 5 years now, and there is a path you can follow to getting what they call permanent residency. And we just got notified today after like literally 5 years of working on it and 6 intense months of paperwork and interviews and stuff like that. We just got the notification about 20 minutes before this call that we got confirmed for that. So I've got permanent residency in Europe now, which is pretty awesome.
Let's go. Air 5. I love
Yes.
that. That is a
Yeah.
huge feat. And that's actually what my husband and I did. It's so funny because we lived in Barcelona for 5 years and we got the permanent residency as well. Spain is definitely a lot harder to get like permanent residency as an American, but
Yeah.
they have other like ways that you can get visas that like in other countries too. Like Portugal, I know is a lot more lenient. But let's chat like
Yeah.
about tell us where you're from and like what initially started you to jump on this journey. Like how did you decide, okay, we're gonna go live abroad? Like how did that
Yeah.
happen?
So I mean, it goes back like a pretty long ways, but I think like a lot of people, well, let me tell you where we are right now because that'll set the stage for kind of the backstory.
Yeah.
I've been living in Spain for the last almost 5 years, and for the last like 6 or 7 months, my wife and I decided we had been like kind of like we didn't come to Spain with the intention of staying in one place for 4 or 5 years. We came with the idea that we're probably going to come for a year on a visa and bounce around and then go back to the US or move on somewhere else as we had done in the past. But after like we landed in Valencia, we ended up staying there for almost 5 years, and we did a lot of traveling in the meantime, but it had kind of become like a home base, and we started getting itchy feet like, we need to get out and move around and try some other countries out for longer stints of time. So we're on like a 1 year kind of moving around 3-4 months in different places, currently in the south of Germany, in a
Oh,
place called Freiburg, which has been awesome, Black Forest, and at the the backyard of like the Swiss Alps and the French Alsace area. And it's been great. Yeah.
Black
So
Forest. That sounds amazing.
yeah. So I mean, like we're on like a little nomad stint, but we haven't been very nomadic the last 4 or 5 years at least. So I guess like going back to the beginning stages of this, we're one of those couples that was like, we're doing all the right things with the career and, you know, getting things started and buying a house and settling down and doing our 2 weeks of vacation every year. And it just wasn't quite doing it. So like long story short, like did the whole cliche now, like sell the house, sell all the things, go on the road. We moved down to South America for a while, ended up traveling around for a couple years, and eventually just wanted some kind of a base. Like we wanted to be abroad, but we wanted to have a home base, and we found that via the non-lucrative visa in Spain that gave us that opportunity.
Cool. And then, so when you initially left, like what was your situation? You were already working remote, and your wife as well.
Yeah.
How did you guys line it up so that you guys were in this point where like, hey, with our current jobs, like we can go?
I'm sure, you know, like so many people like this that I envy. They have that spontaneity where they're like, yeah, we just, you know, like, screw it, I'm just selling everything and just going. We did not have that. We were like way too like nerdy and calculated. And I think in the end, that's what just suited us well. I think for a lot of people, like just ripping off the Band-Aid and just going is what you have to do. But in our case, we were like, you know, we have a house and a mortgage and cars and pretty good jobs. And there's like, it would be kind of stupid to just completely toss it all away. Let's figure out how we can do this sustainably. So over about like a 1.5 year period, we kind of like took some major steps. My wife quit her job, started an online business. I was already working remotely, but not very location independently. Like I was in the US, I had to be in a certain geographic area to be able to work there. So I kind of like finagled a nomad lifestyle, like, hey, could I just move around? It'll be within the US. I tried to then push for moving abroad, and that didn't fly. But anyway, it was like these baby steps to where like we ended up offsetting some of the income that we had lost. We had some location independent income coming in. We had some savings.
Nice.
We timed some things up. So we were calculated and made that big step. And I mean, it was scary, you know, at the time. But looking back, like you wouldn't change anything.
And for most people that are tuning in, like it does sound scary. And that's kind of like why everybody's here is, you know, they want to make that move, or they want to like learn your secrets to like how you now confidently go everywhere and can, you know, have this remote job. And I'm guessing this remote job for Doist, that came afterwards, right? So like, tell me about things that came into your life after you decided to like pull the Band-Aid off. I know you guys said you did it more in a planned way. And I think people are going to resonate like with that. Like, you don't have to just go, all right, I'm going in 6 months. Like, I think most people want to make sure it's like at least a 12-month out planning. But like, what happened to you when you actually decided to go abroad? Like, what beautiful things happened?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because that I think like generally speaking, everybody that I've met through like doing the podcast and just living this way for the last like 10 years I've met so many people along the way that there's this like red thread that connects them all, which is like they all felt like they had to take a one major step backwards to take like 2 steps forwards. And so that major step backwards is really scary. And it can happen quickly, it can happen slowly, like whatever, either way, you feel like you're giving up a lot to like chase this dream that you think may not work out. And there is that chance, but I've met very few people that didn't learn a lot from even the failures that happened during that step backwards.
Okay.
And so I think like what I see like from my vantage point now looking backwards is people that generally take that step almost never regret it. Like even if it fails completely, which at one point like we did have a pretty bad fail story where like this is falling apart right in front of us, you're still like getting a lot of experience, learning a lot, and carrying that forward. So like for me, I took a year off of work, and I like, which was really hard for me because I'm kind of like driven and enjoy my work. I enjoyed what I was doing, actually. I just couldn't do that abroad. And so like I had to like really sit with myself and learn like what are the things that I'm interested in, what are like, it was very humbling to suddenly have like no power, no income,
Wow.
and to think about like, what am I really wanting to do? Yeah, I want to live abroad and I want to be able to travel, but like I'm gonna also do something professionally and seek some purpose in that way. And so I learned a lot. Like I picked up some skills, I read some books, I, spent that time. I helped my wife with her e-commerce business and learned a lot of little things that at the time I didn't even realize were really important. I learned a lot about living abroad, like visa stuff and tax stuff, and what can happen when things go wrong, and how to deal with those things. Like a lot of little things that you're learning through osmosis. So I think those shouldn't be like undervalued. They're all small individually, but they have meaning. And so collectively, like what that led to was me saying like, the most important thing for me is location independence. Like, yeah, I want to have a job that I care about and I want to work with people that I care about, but I really need to just be able to earn an income. I want to have stability. I also learned like I wasn't an entrepreneur necessarily, and I kind of thought I was. I didn't want to be a freelancer. I wanted to be part of a team. And
Yeah.
so going through all those things, I then started looking for companies that would hire location independent, which doesn't sound that weird now. But
Right.
like 2015, like way pre-pandemic, I
Mm-hmm.
literally literally found a blog post that was like 72 companies that are hiring from anywhere in the world. And like that was the only thing I could find. Like that 72 kind of might sound like a lot, but like I'll bet you there are 72 job boards just dedicated to remote work now. Like
I know, right?
there
Oh
were
my,
so few jobs that would do that. So few
I
companies that would
remember.
hire like that. Yeah,
I remember because I also moved to Spain the same time as you. Like I went like 2016. And I remember I did the same thing where I had my corporate job and they wouldn't let me go abroad. So I just left. And then I figured it out once I got to Spain. I was hustling. I was
hmm
trying to find these job boards that would say remote work. And it's just like everybody basically has it handed to them now. Like the future of work is freelance. Everybody knows this. Like if you're not shifting into freelance, like you're going to be left behind kind of
Yeah.
thing, And that's so cool that so from that blog post, did you actually end up finding Doist? Like,
Yeah,
did you
yeah,
find
yeah.
that they were hiring?
That was it. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, exactly as you say, like that is the future today. And at the time it wasn't visible.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I found Doist, was connected to that. There were only two jobs, by the way. Like I'm not a coder or a developer by any means. And there were only two jobs of those 72 that weren't developer engineer jobs. So I was
Okay.
like, man, I'm screwed. Like I'm not going to be able to get any of these. I ended up getting the job with Doist and running the international marketing team. And then I've moved into what I do now, which is like all about our remote infrastructure and everything. But like that was the world then. And so I just think when I think back through those steps, it was like a lot of learning along the way and all the things that I learned. In fact, even like one of the questions that the chief marketing officer asked me in the interview was to tell them about something that I had experienced on these travels as I had been digital nomading. And
Mhm.
we travel with a 50-pound Siberian husky. And so I was explaining to her like all the logistics of what I've learned about moving around the world with a giant dog. And she told me
Wow.
later, like that was the answer, that was the question that got me the job. Was like, she was like, if he can do that, he can do anything we're gonna ask him to do here. And
Right.
so it's like you don't know what you're learning along the way and how useful that's gonna be, which is to be valued, I guess.
That's so cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. And it sounds like from your moves abroad, like South America, you guys did this whole you did this like 1 year, almost like self-discovery and like self-transformation and figuring out what you really wanted. And I keep hearing that from like all of our experts and myself, like it really forces you to like like really to narrow down on like what you really want out of life
Yeah.
and like what kind of life do you want to create instead of just following this path that we're always taught to follow. And then so what does your guys' life look like now? Like kind of explain to us what a typical day looks like living in Spain and this van life thing that we all see on Instagram, all these reels. Like what is it like?
Dude, the van life is it should be like reportrayed in Instagram. It's like
Oh,
it's not as glamorous as they make it look. We did like 8 weeks, I think. We can never remember if it was 8 weeks or 10 weeks a couple years ago in the van, and we about like killed each other, and we were like, yeah, we're never doing that again.
oh,
So I really I'm like very envious of these people who can do it long term. For us, it's like we don't live full time in the van. We've up until just recently had our home base in Valencia, and we would travel like 3 to 5 months out of the year, some in the van, some, by plane or whatever. But it was nice having our home base there. And then, one of the things, I mean, this about Spain, like it's so diverse. I think when people think of Spain, they think of, the Costa del Sol and like beaches and flamenco and paella
yeah.
and stuff like that. And that's like, yes, there's tons of that,
Ole.
but like there's also like the Pyrenees are insane. Like the Pyrenees
Oh,
look like the Alps, and like you're like on the border of Portugal and France, and you can go to the Canary Islands in the winter, and the north of Spain looks like Ireland, like green and lush and cliffs dropping
mhm.
into the sea. And so there's
The
just
back
a ton
country.
of yeah, Basque country, like you've got like different languages and diversity. So it's all for people like us that are from the US. There's so much packed into a very small area. Like you can drive across the country in 5, 6, 7 hours and change worlds like completely. So I mean, I've had a blast really getting to know Spain, learning Spanish, traveling to other parts of Europe. One of the things that I love about Valencia in
Mhm.
particular is like it's a big enough city where you have lots of stuff going on, but it's not super touristy. There's not like, you don't get like packs of tourists walking through the old town. And then the third thing is that you have the airport, which is like a major international airport throughout Europe, which from my apartment in the center of the city, I can be sitting at my gate, like not just at the airport, but like sitting at my gate in like 45 minutes. And
Amazing.
and so it's just like I can go all over Europe. I'm living like a good, like pretty inexpensive, well balanced, healthy life in a warm
Yeah.
Mediterranean climate, and traveling a lot throughout Spain and the Iberian Peninsula and other places in Europe. So
Oh,
it's kind of checking like a lot of boxes.
love it. And I attest, like I go snowboarding as well. So the Pyrenees, I go to Andorra all the time. If people don't know what Andorra is, it's like a small
Oh,
country in between Spain and France. And it's actually outside of the EU, and they have like the most amazing skiing. And it's a tax haven. You can buy, like, people go there just to go shopping because it's so cheap. People go there to buy cars, people go there to start their businesses. So this whole region is just like, for an American that's
insane.
never gone over there, or anyone who hasn't even gone over there, I mean, it's just so different from what we're used to in a positive way. How can somebody like look at how you guys are living? So like Valencia, I already know the answer because I've already lived in
You're doing
Barcelona, but
it.
like, yeah. But what are kind of like typical expenses, and how does that like compare to what you guys were spending in like the US? And you don't have to tell us like, hey,
Yeah.
how much you're spending, but average, like just
Yeah.
typical things like groceries. You know what I mean? Like average rent, like how much would we need to like budget for if we're planning to make that move, either to just do a test run, maybe we just want to go for 3 months first to like see what it's like, versus making a full-on move for like 12 months or beyond. How
Yeah.
can they how can they budget for this?
So like for some context, like I moved to Valencia from, at the time I went back to the US and spent like a year and a half in Asheville, North Carolina. And so Asheville's kind of like a Boulder or something like that, like a smaller mountain town, but like not a little village and not a big city. And so you've got like a median cost of living. It's not super expensive, but not super cheap either. And so coming from the US, I've calculated that I'm spending about 2,500 to 3,000 per month less than I would be for a comparable lifestyle there. The main reasons for the reduction is housing. Like the cost of housing is just insanely
Oh yeah.
like much cheaper. Like, so I mean, the reason I give the context is if you're coming from LA, or you're coming from, London or New York or Miami or something like a major city where the cost of living is really high, those numbers are going to be even like that difference is going to be much higher. But for coming from like a mid-sized city to going to a major city in Europe, you're talking about like, $3,000 a month difference. So the housing prices, like for, I know people that are spending 5 to 6 to 700 on their rent in a nice apartment per, like, each month.
Yeah.
We were spending a little bit more than that to have like a big terrace in the center of the city, for like a 2-bedroom, 2-bath kind of situation. The other big
Amazing.
thing is like health insurance is insane. As you know, like going from the US where we were spending, 800 a month on crappy health insurance, we're spending 100 a month for a family for complete, like full insurance. Like I don't even think we know what that means in the US, but like
Right. We
no
don't.
deductibles, no co-insurance, everything's
Nothing.
covered for $100 a month, like for a
I
family.
know.
You're like, what?
Yeah, I still am paying. By the way, I came back to the US because my dad passed away. And that's
Oh,
why, yeah, I'm taking
I'm
care of
sorry.
stuff here. Yeah, it's been quite a rough time, but we still have our place in Barcelona. We're still paying for it. And we're keeping our private insurance because it is that good. I have a neck injury. So it's like having that, I pay 60 euro for one person. I'm DKB. What are you?
I'm with a company called Aegon,
Aegon.
AEGON. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard
Or
of them. Mine is
Igon.
through my bank. It's
Okay.
just such a, like you say, it's such a different way of like how they organize the healthcare system. And the public is good too, but I just went with private just because I wanted to have that more, you know,
You got more
faster
options.
experience. And like obviously if you have an injury like myself, getting like MRIs and all that, like everything is completely included. It's
Yeah.
crazy. And like
It's
I was
crazy.
able to get my MRI like literally 3 days later. I mean, it's
That
just insane.
that what you just said is what I was about to say the same thing. Like it's what's crazy to me is I think the stigma coming from abroad, like when you go to a place like that that's got very like almost basically free comprehensive health insurance, they say, oh well, yeah, but the trade-off is you're gonna have to wait for forever for whatever it is you need. And like that is totally not true. What the only part that's true about that is like if you don't have something that's not like actually important, yeah, you might have a date that's set out kind of, like a couple weeks in advance or something like that. But anything that's important, like you got an MRI in 3 days. I hurt my back. I had same thing, had to have an MRI, got it done in a couple days. I know a friend that had to have knee surgery, like not super important, just had like a tear in the meniscus, wasn't fully mobile anymore. And they got the surgery in like a week. And so, you know, it's like a very small trade-off for the, I think we put a lot of emphasis on like speed and immediacy, and at least coming from
Yeah.
the US, and like if you're willing to give up just a tiny fraction of that, then like you can have amazing coverage for next to nothing abroad. So it's
Yeah.
a total mindset shift, and it'll be really hard to readjust to that.
That's awesome. And then, so you've kind of talked about like housing, what that looks like, and like health insurance. What are some
Yeah.
like other things that were like huge, like money savers while moving to Spain? I mean, cost of groceries, right? Like how,
Like
and
just
the
your daily
quality.
expenses. Yeah, just your daily expenses. Like when we go out for dinner, it might spend $30 or $40 or something. Like if it's a really nice dinner, it might be a little bit more. But I mean, I was just back in the US for a month, and like I think I went out for a couple burritos and spent like $70. And I was like, I walked out of there just like, what just hit me? I went to the grocery store. Like it's such reverse culture shock when you
Yes.
go back, you're like, this is crazy. Like a good bottle of wine for like, 4 or 5, $6 versus like 20
Yeah.
in the US. And you're just for like something just decent. And I don't know, it's very hard. I tried to really hard every time I've gone abroad. I've like tempered myself against, okay, I don't want to have that reverse culture shock. So like just don't think of it as like adjusting to this lifestyle. Don't adjust to these prices. Just think of it as like, oh, you're saving money right now, but that's the real world you'll go back to. And after this time I've been abroad for 5 years now, and it's like really it's becoming very hard when I go back to
Yeah.
reconform my mind to those things.
And I don't think there's any way to kind of like allow yourself to not have reverse culture shock, especially if you are living for like multiple months or years, like especially after 5 years, you will start to change. Like, so what were some of the things that you feel like you've shifted as a person, like now? What has made, like, how are you better? And I can share just a couple of mine. Like, I learned how to chill. I learned how to relax.
That's
I
mine.
learned that I don't have to do so many things. You know, being busy isn't like how I meditate now. Like now I can go for a walk, like look at those green parrots. Those green parrots in Valencia, by the way, are like
Super
so
cool,
pretty.
right?
I love them. And then the orange trees, you're walking down the street, just kind of like looking around, observing more, like learning how to be by yourself, having a coffee, you know, just like these things that they don't really teach us back
Yeah.
in our, I mean, at least you and I, our country.
Yeah. Yeah. You hit the nail on the head for me. I'd be curious to know like if it's also the same for you. When you go back, so like you're splitting time between Spain and the US. When you go back to the US, do you find yourself like kind of falling into the rhythm of life there again, like
Yeah.
without knowing it? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what happens as humans. We just adapt to whatever it is. So like if people are fearful or scared of like making this move, you're going to adapt to whatever your environment is, you know? And it's,
Totally.
we shouldn't be worried because everything always ends up working out. And you know,
Does.
I didn't want to come back to the US, but hey, it's working out again. And yeah, I'm hustling like more than I was in Spain, but that's what you do here, you know? And it's
Yeah,
like
you
when you
do.
go to Spain, that's your time. If you want to hustle, you can, but like that's your time to really like take a like be in the present moment. At least that's what I think.
Yeah. I have like two distinct memories. Like one was the first time or the second time I went abroad. I did my like study abroad. And this is when I was in college and I went to Austria. I did it in Austria and like I remember like being at this table talking to these people and they were talking about how like basically in a nutshell like how chill life was and how they weren't really thinking about like my questioning to them was like, yeah, but like, how are you ever going to like have like, the big home and like, what if you want to go on big trips and you want to, it was all about like being, it was very competitive conversation, very like achievement based, like how are you going to, and not just around things, but like almost like, how do you become number one at whatever it is that you're doing? It's just this like innate thing that's kind of baked into us, I think,
Right.
in business
The
or
best.
war. Yeah, just be the best. Like literally, like you're taught, we're the number one country in the world. Like be like, so how do you be like really, really great? And their mindset was like, well, I don't know, like what's the value in being great? Like, we're just trying to live. We're just trying to have fun and like enjoy life. And I remember just being floored by that. Like literally, like so I'm like, I don't know how to talk to you. Like what are we like? I'm not this, but this was a mind-blowing concept to me that like maybe you don't have to be, great at everything. And there's more about like just enjoying life. And so moving to Spain, that has really helped me slow down, like live the more like tranquilo lifestyle. I get into the flow of pace there. Like I work less. I'm more efficient with my work. I'm not like a rat, like on a hamster wheel. But when I go back to the US, I immediately like I wake up earlier, I work longer hours, I take shorter lunch breaks. And it's not because anybody's pressuring me to, it's just like I get back into the flow of life. And so it's interesting. You adapt to your surroundings very easily.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this juicy information. I wish we could like stay talking a lot more. What's like your last secret that you'd want to give to like what is the one secret you'd want to give to people that are, they're remote workers or they have a business and they want to move abroad in the next 12 months? Like what do you want to leave them with?
Um, I think like one of the things that's been most powerful for me is like outsourcing your weaknesses. Like I'm a big fan of the 4-hour work week mindset and just like not trying to do it all by yourself. Like we each have an hourly rate that we're valued at for whatever we do, and outsourcing those things, like calculating those things and figuring out this isn't really worth my time. And I'm better off doing what I'm really good at and paying somebody else to do what I'm really what I'm really not good at. And I think that really comes into play when you're talking about navigating international visas and taxes and things like that. All the power to you if you can figure it out on your own. Many people do, but I've also seen many people spin their wheels for months and years, and that's held them back from going and
Mm,
enjoying. And you can invest a relatively small amount in getting the right help
yes,
to expedite those processes and take a lot of headache off of yourself so you can focus on the things that you're really good at.
I
So
totally agree.
yeah.
And I couldn't support you more there because if we don't have support, like we can't get to where we want to go. We
Yeah,
can't do everything by ourselves. So like if you need help, like hire someone, hire that lawyer, hire that whoever. That's
totally.
really important. So tell us so Chase has a free gift that he wants to give to you guys. Do you have an idea of what that free gift is? And
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
include
absolutely.
it in the email that I'm going to
Definitely.
send out to everybody.
So I do a lot of I do a lot of consulting work alongside being the head of remote at Doist and doing About Abroad, and those two things kind of intersect at this world of what we call global mobility. So just like embracing global mobility, however you want to envision that, whatever your situation is. If your idea is, your vision is to get abroad, then I love to help people doing that either via remote work or looking at your options in terms of visas and stuff like that. So whatever the case may be, if you're interested in having a chat, I normally do 1 hour consultations a few times a month. And I normally charge for those, but I'm giving one away for free here at this event. So
Awesome.
someone,
Well,
whether,
I'll be sure to give them the link so like they can apply and then you can choose somebody.
yeah, that's great.
Sounds
That's great. I look forward
awesome.
to it. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. And thanks to everybody who tuned in. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Chase and we'll see you guys on the next interview.